Speed has been cited as a factor in the one-car crash, but the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is checking for others. This picture of Walker next to the sports car was taken moments before the crash was taken.
When they opened Paul Walker's garage 12 years after his death, no one was ready for what they would see. Hidden behind plain doors was more than a car collection. It was a world filled with rare machines, unfinished builds, and quiet messages he left behind. Some cars were taken apart mid-work. Others carried notes in his handwriting. It felt like he had just stepped out and would return at any moment. This was not about fame or money. It was something deeper, something personal. What was he really building in secret, and why did he keep it hidden? Join us to find out. Hidden World. The exterior of the structure appeared unremarkable and easily overlooked. Situated discreetly in Valencia, it seamlessly melded with a line of comparable industrial buildings. Devoid of any signage, identifying markers or clues, it gave no indication of its contents. Observers might assume it to be a nondescript warehouse or vacant structure. Its unassuming nature did not attract notice, but within it contained a tale. As the doors opened gradually and the lights flickered on, the stillness in the room changed. What materialized before them was not mundane or unremarkable. It was something intimate and unique to each individual present. The area was packed with cars lined up in rows. They were tightly arranged, wrapped in tarps, and sitting beneath a light coating of dust. Over 30 vehicles were contained within, each exuding its unique, silent aura. A few seemed untouched for a while, with slightly softened tires and a serene stillness as if anticipating something. Meanwhile, some appeared freshly serviced with tools nearby, parts strewn across workbenches, and coffee cups left behind as if time had frozen. This location was not designed to wow guests. It did not prioritize cleanliness for appearances, nor was it set up as a showcase. It had an energy of its own and felt authentic. It functioned as a practical and personal workspace, exclusively for Paul Walker. Every part of the garage held a fragment of his presence. The remarkable aspect was not only the quantity of cars present, but the significance they held. Every car narrated a subtle tale. Each vehicle revealed a unique facet of its owner. One of the most surprising finds was an exclusive BMW M3 Lightweight. This particular model is extremely uncommon, with only a limited quantity produced. To many enthusiasts, possessing even just one would be a source of great satisfaction. However, in this case, there were multiple examples available. Each vehicle had been meticulously preserved and maintained. Each one had been thoroughly examined and comprehended. Among them were handwritten messages, basic, concise reflections on the car's performance, handling, and potential enhancements. These messages were not crafted for showmanship. They were not intended for display. They were crafted for comprehension. They conveyed attentiveness, perseverance, and a profound admiration for the vehicles. It was evident that this was not the effort of an individual seeking recognition. This was the effort of an individual who had a genuine passion for their work. Just a few feet away, there was a Toyota Supra, evoking thoughts of the vehicles featured in the Fast and Furious movies. However, this particular car had never made an appearance on screen or been shown to the public. It remained secluded in this area, isolated from the rest of the world. It felt intimate. It seemed like something created not for recognition, but for happiness. Next came the Nissan Skyline GT-RR 34 versions. These vehicles were associated with his public persona, yet they represented something more profound in this context. While examining the collection, the team made a surprising discovery. The vehicles were not solely owned by Paul Walker. Instead, a significant number of them were associated with a company known as Always Evolving. He and his close friend, Roger Rodas, established this business together. It was recognized as both a high-performance workshop and a racing venture. Despite appearing ordinary, it also functioned as a holder for precious assets, such as the vehicles stored in the garage. During his lifetime, this building did not pose any issues. It facilitated seamless operations and safeguarded his personal space. After he passed on, things got more complex. Legal teams started examining documents and ownership records, uncovering a revelation that had a significant impact. Contrary to popular belief, most of the cars thought to be his personal property were actually registered under the company's name. Furthermore, the company's financial stability was also called into question. All of a sudden, everything became complex. The garage, once a serene sanctuary, transformed into a hub of confusion. It now housed a multitude of uncertainties, with each car representing a bigger concern. Who owned the vehicles was no longer clear, and accountability was lacking. A protracted and arduous legal battle ensued. Allegations started surfacing, with individuals asserting ownership of specific vehicles while others claimed different cars as their own. Disputes arose regarding the distinction between personal and business-related assets. There were a few documents that were not found. Certain agreements were never formally documented. Often, the solution was unclear. The carefully curated collection, filled with passion and love, was now being scrutinized and evaluated meticulously. The focus had shifted from emotions to administrative tasks and providing evidence. Those who had genuine concern for him found it extremely distressing to witness. The vehicles he had personally fixed and learned about were no longer considered a significant part of his narrative. They were now being cataloged, totaled, and debated. Each car became a mere entry in a document, a statistic in a presentation. The peaceful environment he had designed had transformed into a burden. But then something came up, notes found in some cars. What did they say? Stay with us. The notes he never meant to share. His voice stayed concealed, surrounded by quietness. In almost all of the cars in the collection, there were discreetly hidden slips of paper. They were strategically stashed in various locations, such as glove compartments and center consoles, making them difficult to spot initially. However, once they were discovered, it was evident that they were scattered throughout. There was a large number of individuals. Every note was straightforward in its content. Some were hastily scribbled on scraps of paper, while others were jotted down on torn receipts or tiny notepads. They lacked polish and seemed to be impromptu musings captured in moments of solitude. Yet when combined, these notes wove a compelling narrative. These were not simple nags or mere jot-downs. They were packed with specifics. They discussed the performance of each vehicle on the street. They depicted the reactions of the engine, the sensation of the tires, and the maneuverability of the car around turns. There were annotations about velocity, stability, and handling. There were reflections on what was effective and what required alteration. It was evident. Paul Walker did not just possess these vehicles. He existed alongside them. He gleaned knowledge from them. He repeatedly put them to the test, constantly striving to deepen his understanding of them. Some written observations delved into the intricacies of technical aspects, such as alignment angles, suspension configurations, and precise gear shifting points. These notes displayed a meticulous and thorough approach indicative of genuine concern for precision in every minute detail. The tone was deliberate and methodical, devoid of any casualness, indicating a strong sense of seriousness and concentration. Alternate observations had a distinct feel. In the confines of a Nissan Skyline GTR R34, a single observation captured the essence of a serene night drive. The description was straightforward and genuine, capturing the essence of motion, vitality, and the exhilarating sensation of truly living in the present. It revealed the sheer delight he experienced while driving. In a different vehicle, a BMW M3 Lightweight, there was a message that seemed like a gentle nudge. It discussed safeguarding something precious and uncommon. It conveyed a strong obligation. It wasn't about flaunting wealth, it was about demonstrating concern. These notes were intended only for the author's eyes, not for public consumption. They were personal and meant for the author's own reflection. Without considering an audience, they were penned as intimate outpourings of emotion. They could be seen as dialogues between a person and their instruments. A lot of the writings appeared to have been composed in the late hours. One could envision the quietness of the garage, with the engine gradually cooling down after a lengthy journey, a lone light shining from above. In that serene instant, he would jot down his emotions, discoveries, and memories. Track maps were included in certain notes, displaying areas for deceleration, turning, and acceleration. Suggestions on enhancing performance were also provided. It was evident that he approached each drive with significance, viewing every second in control of the vehicle as an opportunity for education. This did not seem like the effort of someone who merely had a superficial interest in cars. The task was carried out by an individual who had a deep understanding of the subject. However, one particular note caught my attention more than the others. Inside the glove compartment of the Skyline, a small piece of paper was discovered with blue ink markings that had begun to curl at the edges, indicating its age. This message did not focus on quickness. It did not emphasize achievements. It did not relate to progress. It revolved around strong affection. It was a straightforward note, penned optimistically. A silent contemplation regarding his daughter, envisioning her someday behind the wheel of the beloved car. It wasn't composed with an audience in mind, nor was it intended for dissemination. It was merely a private reflection, a fleeting personal gesture. You could sense the thoughts that were running through his mind. He possibly considered personally giving her the keys, demonstrating how the car operates, observing her as she grasped the knowledge, experiencing that happiness together. It was a modest aspiration, yet it held significant significance. Instead, the discovery of that letter occurred during a completely separate occasion. In a crowded room where important issues were being discussed, the document and lawyers created a serious atmosphere. The vehicles were not mere modes of transportation anymore. They had taken on a more complex and weighty significance. And that wasn't all they found in his garage. Stick around. A life beyond the screen. Paul Walker, known to the world as Brian O'Connor, embodied the role of a cool and brave driver in the Fast and Furious franchise. He portrayed the blonde, blue-eyed undercover officer who navigated hazardous situations effortlessly, where speed and daring decisions came naturally to him. In front of the camera, he exuded an aura of invincibility, appearing suave, self-assured, and constantly dominating. A common perception among many was that this persona was meticulously crafted and cultivated by the entertainment industry. However, the reality ran far deeper than what meets the eye. Through acting, he had the opportunity to embody various characters and experiences. It allowed him to seamlessly transition into different roles, whether it be a sports star, a savior, or a protector of the law. Acting was not merely a job for him, but a means of delving into fantasies and experiencing different narratives. It filled him with happiness, which radiated through his performances. His emotions were palpable to audiences, even without verbal communication. What set him apart was the authentic connection between his off-screen persona and the characters he portrayed. The passion for automobiles that viewers witnessed in his movies was genuine, not fabricated for the sake of entertainment. It represented a genuine, intense, and heartfelt sentiment. Beyond the glare of the spotlight, Paul Walker embodied a lifestyle that mirrored the enthusiasm and zeal of his iconic role. He didn't just have an interest in cars, he had a deep understanding of them that set him apart from others. His knowledge extended to the inner workings of vehicles, allowing him to discuss engines, speed, and design with enthusiasm and confidence. While most people engage in mundane conversations, he found joy in discussing machines with genuine passion. His extensive knowledge wasn't about flaunting his skills, but rather about a sincere and profound love for something that brought him immense joy and fulfillment. During his lifetime, few were aware of the special project he was undertaking in secret. Without fanfare or publicity, he assembled an extraordinary car collection that ranks among the best in the world. He kept it private, away from the prying eyes of the internet and cameras. His collection was a personal sanctuary, untouched by the need to show off or gain recognition. His garage served a dual purpose as a sanctuary and workshop, where he could relax and be authentic. The absence of external pressures or obligations allowed him to truly be himself. The space was filled with cherished possessions, each holding personal significance. Even those who were close to him were not able to grasp the full extent of his creations. Friends, colleagues, and associates believed they had a deep understanding of him. However, there was a concealed realm that eluded their perceptions. This secretive facet was carefully shielded by him. Subsequently, there was a shift in everything. On November 30th, 2013, Paul Walker and his good friend, Roger Rodas, departed from a charity fundraiser for Reach Out Worldwide, an organization he founded to aid storm victims. Their actions reflected Walker's reputation for generosity and compassion. What was supposed to be an ordinary day quickly spiraled into an unforeseen tragedy. Rodas was behind the wheel of a red Porsche Carrera GT as they traveled on a street in Santa Clarita. The vehicle lost control and collided with a lamppost and trees at a high rate of speed. The car burst into flames within moments of the crash. The effect was profound. Immediately, both individuals were rendered unconscious. Roger Rodas succumbed to the injuries sustained from the collision. Paul Walker departed shortly after due to the collective impact of the accident and the subsequent fire. The sight was heart-wrenching and startling. Subsequent inquiries revealed that neither substances nor alcohol were factors. The absence of mechanical issues was evident. The primary reason was attributed to the car's speed and tire condition. It was a tragic conclusion that caught everyone by surprise. During that period, the filming of Furious 7 was still in progress. The production had to be stopped to allow the team to grieve and support his family. There was a collective pause in the world as supporters, companions, and other actors expressed their sorrow. After his death, he was cremated and buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. The solemn goodbye honored a man who had impacted numerous people. However, for those who were nearest to him, there was still one final moment to come. Soon after he passed away, his family, attorneys, and colleagues found themselves in an unexpected position. They were tasked with managing his assets and sorting through his belongings. One day, they assembled to unlock the doors of his personal workshop. The original intention was for the moment to be somber. As the doors began to open and the lights turned on, a surprising turn of events occurred. All those present suddenly came to the same understanding simultaneously. They had never fully understood the true extent of Paul Walker. So what was inside this garage? What hidden message was uncovered? Let's dive in. Stories left half told. The garage was not fully finished. A few vehicles were scattered in fragments, frozen in time like unfinished statements. They were not discarded or damaged, but rather full of vitality and intention, midway through the process of coming into existence. These were ongoing endeavors that Paul Walker had actively participated in until his last day. A Datsun 240Z on stands stood out as a remarkable example. It was elevated off the ground with its body exposed, devoid of seats, carpet, and even a dashboard that had been dismantled and placed next to it. It didn't seem like anyone was taking it lightly. Each item had been tagged with tiny pieces of tape, all bearing his distinctive handwriting. This demonstrated organization, serenity, and strategic foresight. The engine compartment had been meticulously tidied and primed for a new project that had been occupying his thoughts for quite some time. Resting on the driver's seat was a compact notebook, displaying a page filled with various engine concepts listed together. Each alternative was accompanied by its own set of annotations, highlighting both advantages and drawbacks that had been analyzed thoughtfully. This vehicle was never intended for idle use. It wasn't designed for showcase. Its purpose was to be put into action, to be utilized on a daily basis. It was a project he aimed to craft personally, from inception to completion. Adjacent to the area, there was another vehicle from a different era lingering. This vintage American muscle car displayed signs of ongoing refurbishment, with its robust frame indicating previous labor. A basic inventory was secured along its dashboard with a piece of tape. Each task was meticulously listed in a sequential order, with some already completed and marked off, and others remaining untouched, patiently awaiting attention. Beneath the steering section, there were dangling wires that appeared to have been partially connected but left incomplete. The protective covering had been pulled back, revealing the shining copper underneath. It seemed as though the work had been abruptly halted, suggesting that the next stage was imminent. Next to the vehicle, tools were neatly arranged. They were not haphazard or disorganized. Each tool had its designated spot. The wrenches were organized according to size. The screwdrivers were grouped in one place. The overall scene exuded a sense of tranquility and consideration, indicating a deep respect for the task at hand. These incomplete vehicles may appear disorganized to those without knowledge. They could be mistaken for neglected endeavors. However, that is not the reality. These vehicles had a more profound narrative to share. They demonstrated that he was more than just a machine collector. He was actually a mechanic. He devoted many hours to his work in that area, with intense concentration and silence. His time there would extend to entire days, devoid of any interruptions. He would turn off his phone and shut the door, immersing himself in the sounds of tools and the soothing music playing in the background. He took his time. He dedicated himself to slow, steady progress, continuously adapting and enhancing his skills. His hands were always dirty with grease, a testament to his hard work. His focus was always on finding solutions to minor issues, tackling each challenge methodically. At the end of each day, he walked away feeling a deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Friends reminisced about how he would show up late to their gatherings, always cheerful and brimming with enthusiasm. He would excitedly discuss his latest discoveries and advancements, not to boast, but to share the joy of making things better. These incomplete vehicles were more than just works in progress. They were narratives in movement. Each of them represented a section he had been crafting with caution and deliberation. Every element that had been discarded, every section that had been polished, every detail that had been recorded, all contributed to a greater composition, a composition that was yet to reach its final shape. Strolling through the garage seemed to have a changed atmosphere once he had departed. It was as if he was left hanging in the midst of a compelling narrative. Each vehicle seemed to carry a fragment of the vision he had for the future. Each unfinished assignment indicated a project he had intended to revisit. All the incomplete engines, the vacant insides, and the to-do lists with unfinished tasks conveyed a shared, subtle communication. There were additional things yet to happen. That moment never came. Even though the cars were not fully completed, they still communicated a message. They demonstrated his attention to detail, dedication, and passion for the project. They served as a reminder that the journey is just as important as the destination. Driven by kindness. Some vehicles housed in the garage served a unique function. Initially, they appeared indistinguishable from the rest. Silently seated amidst the impressive machinery and incomplete tasks, they seemed unassuming. However, upon further inspection, a unique quality was unveiled. Several dashboards displayed tiny handwritten messages. While some contained only the letters R, O, others featured lengthier descriptions inscribed on adhesive notes. It didn't take much time to grasp their meaning. RO represented Reach Out Worldwide, the nonprofit organization founded by Paul Walker. It was a side of his life that remained hidden from the public eye for the most part. He gained fame among the public for his roles in movies such as Fast and Furious. People viewed him as a celebrity who thrived in a realm filled with thrill and adventure. However, behind the scenes, he led a contrasting life. Instead of seeking attention, he preferred to assist others in humble and discreet ways. During times of crisis, he never hesitated to lend a hand. In 2010, following a devastating earthquake in Haiti, he immediately joined relief efforts. Collaborating with fellow volunteers, he assisted in distributing aid and aiding disaster victims. His actions were selfless, and without seeking recognition, he just did what needed to be done. In 2013, he traveled to the Philippines when a powerful typhoon struck, joining the teams he had previously assembled. He distributed supplies, removed rubble, and assisted individuals on the ground. Despite challenging circumstances, he devoted countless hours to the cause, without seeking personal comfort or acknowledgement. Those who collaborated with him frequently reiterated the same sentiment. In his presence, one did not experience the aura of a celebrity, but rather the genuine concern of a compassionate individual. The same energy could be observed within the confines of the garage. The cars, labeled with those tiny messages, were not intended to be kept secret indefinitely. They were actually part of a strategic scheme. It was a subtle strategy that he had been developing. He had been getting ready to utilize these cars to aid his humanitarian efforts. The beloved vehicles were going to assist individuals who had been left with nothing. One of the identified cars was a customized Toyota Supra, not intended for showcase, but for a specific purpose in the future. It was designated for involvement in a fundraising campaign. Another vehicle, a Ford Mustang Boss 302, had a message on its dashboard outlining suggestions for an event, potential venues, and strategies for utilizing the car for gathering financial backing. He wrote everything by himself. He had been preparing for the future long before he passed away. His actions were already underway as he transformed his interests into a purposeful endeavor. He aimed to connect his personal interests with the needs of society by creating a bridge. These ideas did not appear to be the work of a big group. There was no elaborate strategy to attract attention. It was straightforward and sincere. His goal was to utilize his resources to assist others. The people in that area had their perspectives completely altered due to that newfound awareness. The cars had transformed from mere possessions into vessels of meaning. They were imbued with purpose and intention. Every vehicle marked with those specific symbols had been assigned a distinct role, serving a purpose greater than its individual existence. So what did they truly realize about Paul's collection? The truth they could not ignore. Ultimately, they discovered more than just a mere assortment. Eventually, a few vehicles from the collection were purchased. A selection of cars formerly owned by Paul Walker were put up for public auction in Arizona. The auction, organized by Barrett and Jackson, generated a substantial amount of money. Enthusiasts traveled from various locations to view and place bids on the cars that were once cherished by the late actor. Numerous BMW M3 lightweight models were present among the collection of cars. These particular models were considered scarce and held in high esteem, as only a limited quantity were produced. It was evident that he held a strong attachment to these vehicles. Additionally, there were older variations of the same series, as well as various high-performance cars such as an Audi S4. The assortment featured various styles, including trucks by famous manufacturers, vintage American cars, and a Ford Bronco. Each vehicle showcased a unique aspect of his diverse and reflective interests, indicating a wide-ranging and considerate passion. Many buyers were particularly drawn to the Fast and Furious movie-related items, with a Nissan 370Z used in the film being a standout. Along with vehicles representing the star's fondness for Japanese performance cars like the Nissan Skyline GT-R R32, even off-screen cars held significant value for collectors. However, not all items were purchased. Some of the cars were excluded from public view. A handful were retained by his relatives. The rest were managed discreetly, beyond the reach of cameras and public scrutiny. These choices demonstrated that not everything can be quantified by its worth or cost. Simultaneously, the legal proceedings carried on. The tranquility of the garage had dissipated, replaced by an atmosphere of paperwork, disputes, and lengthy debates. Observing this transition weighed heavily on those who cared for him, almost like experiencing the loss of a piece of him once more. Some vehicles faced challenges as well. A few Nissan Skyline GT-R models were imported to the country under unfavorable circumstances. Their documentation was often lacking. Some were still awaiting approval. Others had not been officially registered yet. He was aware of the potential dangers. He never cared about flaunting his wealth or showing off his status. Instead, his priority was maintaining the cars in their original, untouched state. He was a firm believer in protecting their authenticity, and this principle influenced his decisions. Despite the conclusion of auctions and the gradual progress of legal issues, one element remained more powerful than any other. It wasn't about the financial aspect. It wasn't the uncommon designs. It wasn't just the association with movies. Something more understated is what remained in the minds of the individuals. It remained a task left incomplete. The Datsun 240Z never got its new engine installed. The vintage muscle car still had its short to-do list displayed on the dashboard. The wires were all set up, but not completely plugged in. These were more than just items. They represented frozen moments in time. Some individuals finished working on a few of these cars afterward. Others bought and transported some of the cars to different locations. As per sources close to the family, certain cars stayed untouched in the same condition they were left in. Nevertheless, unspoiled. Patience is a virtue. Time had progressed, yet those vehicles retained a unique aura. They embodied the anticipation of unrealized plans and the lingering presence of someone who never came back. It has been many years since that moment, yet the emotion lingers. People recall not just the contents of the garage, but also the unfinished projects, the evolving ideas, the ongoing work, and the hopeful notion of having endless time. There is still a small note out there somewhere, penned in blue ink and carefully preserved. It conveys a straightforward message from a man who had faith in the ongoing nature of his journey. His memory continues to exist in the sweet thought. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.